lot of work, the wattles and the mulch. And then and there are some native plants that have been included in this area bench in the last few years. But generally speaking, this area, the top area here, is somewhat cleaned up and pretty weed-free. But I think when you get down in this section of the park, it's actually quite heavily weeded and vegetated currently. So I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna jump onto this board here. It's easier to see. I have my glasses in my hand because I'm reading a list and I need my glasses. All right. So what this is a, yes?
I just had one other, Vermont Street, kind of the plantings along the squiggly portion of Vermont Street.
Right here.
Is not within the park boundaries, but is it consideration or are we?
Well, we're really looking at the park.
Okay.
So this is, you can see that there's an edge of the street there, there's an edge of the street there, there's an edge of the street there. So if there's planting right at the edge of this.
Who takes care of that?
That's DPW.
Okay.
Yeah. And we are trying to limit our considerations for that. So I'm going to read through the list that was generated last week so that you can see how all these comments then become translated into what we're calling the issues and opportunities diagram. So we're both identifying the comments on this drawing, and we're also trying to illustrate what we interpret as the opportunities. So, like having off-leash dog area, it's great. Okay, we like that. Dislike off-leash area that feels unsafe and it's somewhat overgrown. So I think that that's in reference to primarily this part of the site, because there are trails, but it is it's heavily vegetated. If your dog runs out, that would be the place where they would pick up foxtails and such things as that. Shrub, another dislike would be shrubs and homeless camp. And so I think that's in reference to the area in the Caltrans property, and maybe some people that might pass through the property. Dislike erosion on the slope. And so we identified this area underneath the trees. I think that some people, because there is no path from the more flat top down to the slope below and the primary trail. So some people do cross up and down there, and so over time that has begun to erode. So like the social atmosphere of the park, and clearly I think that that's happening in general, but primarily this is the sort of geographic. So this is the playground here, this is the open lawn, this is the staircase, and I think if there's people congregating and socializing, it seems to me that it happens primarily in this vicinity. Dislike the unsafe feeling in the park, and again, I think that's probably a reference to this part of the park. And another interesting thing, when if a police car or just people in general are driving on the street, you have limited visibility into the park here, but because the park is a little bit higher in elevation, it's hard to see very deep into it. You have very limited views from 20th, and you have limited views from 20th into this section of the park. So what you have is you have a very large area of the park that can't be seen from the street. And I think the sense of like if police cars just drive by, they really can't see what's happening, and maybe they're unlikely to even walk out onto the slope. So that feeling of being unsafe is a part you can't be observed. Like the wildflowers, so clearly because this is a not highly managed property, a lot of wildflowers, a lot of seasonal grasses have proliferate in this area. So it actually does create habitat, which was discussed quite a bit at the last meeting. Dislike the invasive species, that would be like the Scotch broom and the thistle perhaps, and the foxtails.
Just
about everything back there.
Yeah. It's a lot of invasive office stuff. Like the current park elevation, and I think that's in reference to the fact that because this is higher and this slope drops off, you're unaware of the freeway from the top, and you become aware of it the second you get past the edge. So that's a like. Concerned about the potential removal of trees. So if large amounts of trees were removed, that would be a problem because it would allow for more wind, possibly some sense of more sound and habitat loss. Concerns about the leveling. So if large areas of the park were leveled, it would take away from more native planting areas, or planting areas in general. So you would go from a park that has lots of open space and a lot of awareness of living and growing spaces to more pavement and more manicured lawn and that kind of thing. Dislike the access of strollers and wheelchairs. The only way to get to the top portion of the property of the park is to take a very kind of the far end of this parking bay, and you take the ramp, and then you come around. So it's a little bit inconvenient. And certainly access to the lower portion of the property is not possible. I keep calling it property, but it's really it's the park. And because even here the paths are really not conducive to strollers and wheelchairs. There's concern about serpentine rock, potential for some lead in the soil, metals, toxins, other materials. We don't have an answer for these things. We did try to, there was some research done to try to find a soils report. It's not available, can't be found. But as part of a process of any work, soil testing would be part of that. So it would be done, but I don't have the answers that were asked.
I can try to find that one study that I cited for you, send it to you if you'd like.
Sure. Any piece of information is helpful.
Yeah, it was more for gardens in the area, but.
Yes?
Along that line, in the playground area, the sand beneath the swings, which is at that far western edge, that sand is like black, filthy. A lot of us are curious as to whether it's the pine needles falling in and decomposing, or is it carbon monoxide from the freeway? Is there any way to know that? And if you say you will do soil testing, will they also do that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know. My guess would be the decomposing matter would really make a difference, but it could be that it also sticks on the pine needles as well. But so these are concerns, and I can't answer them specifically. The same with air particle pollution and asthma. Like the previous, some of the members of the previous meeting talked about in the playground area when they were younger had really large swings and really long slides, and they really liked it. And that sounds cool. I like it too.
They were really big.
You could do them on a slope.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think it's
Did you ever go down those slides?
And then
The slides.
Also,
the slides were scary.
that this grass area at the top is not a play field. So there's definitely play fields in the area, but this is not like an official soccer field. It's not a baseball field. It's a multi-use play area. So there's a recognition of that. So those are the kind of likes and dislikes. Then we moved into changes and improvements. And that's where we get a little more subjective, I think. And also more looking out as far as what opportunities there are. Yes?
Being that there's only a few new faces, and I'm close to this, I'm really excited about what I see
didn't want to kind of, even though it seems monotonous, I wanted to make sure that what was said was heard, and that I'm coming back and saying how we're addressing that, because so if someone felt like they had said something that it wasn't here, that we can capture it. So
I understand
that was my, and I know it is a lot more fun to move on this. Yeah. So another concern, so now we're going into changes, and they're a little hard to distinguish between these categories, but shade in the play area. So, we have some shade because we have some existing trees, and we've already identified that the sun is coming from the south and the west, and so once you get past the shade, this is very hot and sunny, so probably the incorporation of some new trees in the play area would be helpful in a new iteration of that. Or if the playground does expand, if it expands in the shady area, then you already have some shade. Yes?
Your delineation of that congregation area there up in, that's where the sunlight lasts the longest throughout the day, and that's why everybody congregates there at the end of the day. In the shade, it's 20 degrees cooler.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that's a sunny hot spot.
That's why
That's a good point. Diaper changing and possible toilet facilities, and that would be controversial. I mean, we could do something like that. It seems to me that it would have to be easy to be maintained. So in that case, it would probably be, probably in this vicinity somewhere would be the only place it could be, because it could be serviced and it could be monitored. So maybe that, is that something that people would like to include in the plan? Yes?
I remember when we first moved into the neighborhood, the lady that worked on the previous park renovation, she had said that they purposely removed the bathrooms because they were a magnet for, they called it a shooting gallery for at night. There was prostitution, drugs, and even though Park and Rec tried to maintain it, the reality was the moms were never comfortable putting their kids in it. And when you look at the $400,000 cost to install one bathroom and the maintenance, it was kind of like, so they just removed it. And I think it was placed over where the picnic tables are.
Here?
Yeah.
The bottom end of the green area.
Yeah, and then I remember, Margaret's not here, but I remember they were really, really long-time neighbors to see that go away, because the nighttime element, you just couldn't enforce it based on the existing design.
Well, they also close those things on some parts of night, so they just lock them up.
But even as daytime, we as kids weren't allowed to go in it because of what was in there.
Yeah, I grew up in this neighborhood, it was the same, it was always really scary. My dad wouldn't let me go get it.
Well, are there playgrounds in San Francisco that have bathrooms if there is not a director on site?
Yes.
There are.
Yeah, there are numerous ones.
There's a clubhouse and directors at Jack.
Bernal has one.
I mean,
But they do, huh?
there are
parks that have
numerous
bathrooms?
ones that don't have consistent staffing. I can speak anecdotally for the area that I serve, which encompasses this and some areas that have some social issues. They range from having occasional illicit or illegal behavior to having very frequent, and it's the full spectrum. Alamo Square restrooms, there's no staff on site there. Very high-end neighborhood. There's constant gang activity in it. There's some history of cruising for sex, all kinds of activities.
I would think they would be very hard to maintain without somebody there
and
constantly.
then
They're open during the day and then somebody comes and locks them at night?
Yeah, all of them are locked by shortly after 8 p.m. in the summer. In the winter,